Welcome back to the 28-3 podcast. This is Nick, back with Max and Corey as usual, after a pretty disturbing loss for the Saints.
That's putting it mildly.
A lot of negative things happened today in the second half. Let's pass it off to Max. What's kind of your initial thoughts following this? You know, what are we concerned about? What's the biggest issues? I think it's an obvious one, but
My first thought is what we talked about in the season preview episode about the offensive line being they were going to be the point of emphasis for how we did on offense this year, and they've been pretty bad the first couple of weeks. Today, much of the same, and we joked about how sooner or later they're going to get Carr killed, and it looks like they might have gotten Carr killed.
Yeah, I actually was absolutely not joking about that. I mean, it sounds funny the way we say it sometimes, but I think it was our Carolina Panthers recap episode where it was like, all right, we saw game one versus Titans. They had their miscues. Maybe Penning looked a little bit better in Carolina if we're going to single him out, but then all of a sudden it was like other guys started letting dudes through, and Carr, the common denominator was he just had no time to do shit. And, it happened. And like, I think I used the word, we were severely jeopardizing our biggest asset on the team. And the one thing that can get us to a place where we can get back to not just making the playoffs, but making noise in the playoffs and running through our NFC schedule, running through the division, all of that stops and ends with a guy like Carr behind center. And we risked the shit out of it. We let guys through. I mean, if I had to hear the word Rashawn Gary one more time from the announcers today, I was going to throw something through a window. And it didn't matter. I mean, we let him get the Carr. O-line's job, run block, but it's also protect the quarterback. Keep the QB of your team. And we failed at that. It took 3 weeks, and we failed.
Yep. I mean, I agree. I think some people say, well, on that particular play, Carr needs to get rid of the ball. I agree. They actually that may have been their best pass protecting play of the game. That's the ironic part. They gave him time to make the play, and he held it a little too long trying to make the play, and we get burned for it. But there's no doubt. I mean, the only thing I think we were all saying that was holding up on the offensive line was Ramczyk, and today he got blown by for 2 sacks. Yeah. Landon Young comes in for 1 play. I put this sack on Jameis. That's it looked to be a 3-step job to me. It should have been a quick throw.
After Jameis came in, you mean?
Right, after he came in, and they put Landon Young just to kind of slow Gary down.
He was a tight end on that play.
Right, he's tight end. We're not planning to block that play straight up. That's a quick throw. The ball never comes out. Jameis gets sacked, drive over. McCoy got blown up on the first drive of the game.
Just a whiff. The guy got past him laterally, and that was it.
Penning had false start. Penning had holding. Penning got blown by again. The only name I didn't see that was terrible was Ruiz today. Hurst gets hurt. Pete comes in.
No, Ruiz got hurt.
Oh, Ruiz got hurt. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why we didn't hear his name.
Right. Well, that was in the second half, right?
Yeah.
Ruiz was out in the first half.
Well, Ruiz
was he?
Yeah.
Ruiz, proved that
concussion.
One way to not let anyone past you is to get a concussion.
It's smart to be on the sideline if they're running through.
But
to be fair, before that, he wasn't an issue today.
Right.
Last week he had his moments. Today was not an issue. Pete was not an issue once he came in, and there was a couple plays. Now, we missed them. We had a screen called and off to the left, and you see Pete get downfield 8 yards, and that's missing for us. A guy who actually gets to the second level as far as the run game and the screen game. Just to see that, I feel like I want him to play more.
Yeah, we both said that. We've been texting back and forth, all three of us, during the whole game, and we were pretty much all in agreement that Pete being back in at left guard and then Hurst sliding over to right guard actually makes the offensive line more effective in the running game. So, look, I think that's a better combination of players on the field.
Yeah, I think the running game definitely improved. There was at least a little more daylight, if nothing else, once Pete was in the game. And, to Pete's credit, on run blocking anyway, there was a play where, I saw him block 2 dudes on one run where he pushed off his initial rusher and then went off to the secondary guy. And but back to Nick's point about the particular Carr injury, because we know that's what's going to be talked about the most this week. It's just going to be, I don't even want to, it's going to be just complete doom and gloom. But that particular play, I'll say that it's not like someone whiffed and the guy got a clear shot because someone whiffed on that particular play. But it's just, it's an example. It's the outcropping of just how bad the line has been the entire time. Like, Carr could have thrown it, sure. Or he could have tucked it. And also, too, it was another one of those things like where, who was it? Was it White for the Bucks when Jameis got injured? And it's just like one of those tackles where if he didn't tackle him that way, it would not have been an injury. If Gary comes in with his feet actually on the ground and just tackles Carr like a normal human being, he wouldn't have gotten injured, even though it's a sack. I mean, this play, Gary leapt up in the air. Someone tweeted, like, coming from the top ropes. I mean, the guy was literally coming from outer space, landing on Carr, spinning, and absolutely slammed him into the ground. I mean, a normal tackle, that injury doesn't happen. The injury...
I mean, you're splitting hairs with this. It's a tackle.
No, if you watch the replay, it was a ridiculously violent, like, not NFL style. It was a wrestling move tackle.
And if you're making a case to get a personal foul,
that's what I'm saying. Actually, it was not just a tackle.
Yeah. Does it probably influence the game? Probably not.
No, he got injured because it was a wrestling move tackle.
It's fine.
I
know.
But that's not really relevant. He's injured.
No, it's extremely relevant.
We should honestly focus on what's going to happen in the future.
No.
Because right now, we have literally turned back the clock to 2022, and we are the same fucking team we were last year.
Yeah, the second half of the game was just time machine back to last year. I mean, the offense looked exactly like it looked last year. I keep getting closer and closer to giving Nick credit for what he said about Carmichael last year. You saw maybe some splash passes from Jameis, a couple completions down the field, but overall, we talked about it during the game. It just did not look organized. Coming late out of the break, all that stuff.
We did. I mean, I think we would all say in the first half we didn't play great on offense, but the drives were punt, touchdown, punt.
Let's be fair. The touchdown, we got the ball on a very short field.
Correct, but that's the ones you have to finish. It was on our side of the field, though. You still have to drive, and you have to get a touchdown.
We closed
right?
it out.
We did it.
We closed it out.
We didn't just get a field goal. We drove it 56 yards, got the touchdown. Good drive. The second drive, we were moving it. We got the holding call once again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you keep putting us behind the chains, this offense isn't going to succeed. How many holding calls? We had 100 yards in penalties, a lot of it being the Alante play that I think turned the game in the fourth quarter.
And it was immediately followed by the same penalty on Yadam.
Right.
It's like...
And to their credit, they finally went after Yadam. They spread the field and went after Yadam. That's the weakness. Adebo's out. They should be going after Yadam. They finally did it, and it worked. And
well, they got Taylor a few times, too. Let's be honest.
They did, but he also got them a lot.
Yeah.
I don't ask for anything more out of Alante Taylor this game. I mean, he played, but for the penalty, but for a couple of passes that got, completed.
He was bad in the first quarter, but then he turned it on and was lights out.
Yeah, he had the whiff on the sack, which highlighted, a bad play by him, but otherwise, I mean, 5 pass defenses, a sack, a QB hit. I forget how many tackles he actually had, but yeah, you can't ask for Taylor to do a whole lot more than what he did in this game. But that brings me on to the next question: Do we have anything against the defense in terms of letting the Packers score?
I do have an issue with them giving up the 2 straight 80-yard drives at the end. They have to step up. I get that the offense dealt them a completely shitty, lopsided hand by just leaving them on the field for, what's the time of possession? You got it pulled up?
It ended up 33-27 almost, but it was worse than that.
No, it was definitely worse than that, but they need to step up. They cannot give up 2 80-yard drives. Plus the other one for a field goal before it. And then you give up the 2-point conversion as well, which completely changed the dynamic of the end of the game. So they have blood on their hands too. Not as much blood as the offensive line does. And, the offensive line, man, right now, that's the biggest issue on the team. I mean, my God, from left to right to left, they're fucking bad.
Well, when who you think is your anchor or your guy that can do no wrong starts doing
on
wrong
the offensive line
and Ramczyk.
Oh yeah.
Once he starts fucking up, then you're like, okay, now the whole thing's amiss.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about Ramczyk. He started off his career great. He's been an amazing pick as a late first-round pick back in 2017. The reality is Ramczyk is, I think he's 29 going on like 45. He has the knees of my mom. This dude he's not going to hold up
hips,
much longer.
Aren't his hips his big issue?
Whatever it is.
We could call it lower body.
Yeah, exactly. Lower extremity.
Yeah.
And he got abused today.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty steady this year. But look, McCoy, he's your second highest paid guy on the offensive line, I believe.
fresh deal.
He has not been great. Ruiz got concussed
up and
before
down.
he could join the penalty parade. Pete, look, to his credit, he got in the game. He kept his nose clean for the most part, and he got some push in the running game. Penning, obviously, is well documented. He has been atrocious for the most part this year, but in his defense, he has an excuse. This is literally his third game this is his fourth game as a starter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Penning somewhat has an excuse. The
Yeah.
rest of these guys, what the fuck are they doing?
Right. I was going to say with Penning, it's like he's young, he's raw, but he's super talented. And you look at the way Armstead came into the league and came onto our team.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
He jumps in with the same, different height, weight, but overall, pops off the page in terms of height, weight, speed combination. But he jumped into an offensive line that was already proven, right? He jumped in with a bunch of guys who we didn't really worry about that much, unless my memory's serving me incorrectly. But it seemed like an already established unit who's already doing great things. So we put Armstead in there, and the onus isn't 100% on him. Guy with Penning jumps in, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up? How do I do this thing?" And they're like, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, we're still trying to learn ourselves."
Yeah, I mean, it took Luis 3 years to figure it out, and he still hasn't.
Yeah. So, and what I mentioned, we were texting the whole game, and one thing that's most troubling to me, if you see a QB, like a young QB who's just making bad reads, or like the Justin Fields situation, he just needs to buckle up and throw the ball more instinctively. Those adjustments can be made right away. With an entire offensive line, with the issues that they have right now, I don't know how this gets fixed. I hope it does, but I don't know how they just go into practice and say, okay, well, we figured something out. This incredibly root cause issue is just going to get fixed. I don't know how the coach fixes it. I don't know how the players fix it between their ears. It's extremely
They have
troubling.
to just buckle up and do better. That's the only fix.
Or we as fans have to buckle up and just know that we're going to be dealing with this shit all fucking year.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, I know we have a normal protocol we usually follow on the review episode, but I think given the circumstances of the major catastrophic injury that we have, I think we can kind of bypass that and just kind of, flesh out, what do we think? What does this mean for the rest of the season? Obviously, it's premature not knowing the exact injury and how long he's out.
I think we'll start with the bad, which we know.
Well, there's no good of this.
There's no good of it, but I think one extreme of the end is Nick. So, Nick, your take on what this all means.
I think we all agreed on this before game one. If Carr's out for an extended period of time, the season's over. I haven't changed that opinion at all. Yeah. You saw the reason, going back to the defense real quick, why I'm not going to blame the defense.
No, we're not blaming the defense, but I just think they can do better.
We can always say that, but when you go okay, Jameis comes in, 6 plays, 14 yards, punt. 3 plays, 8 yards, punt. 5 plays, 20 yards, punt. 3 plays, 7 yards, punt. You don't even give them a second. They are right back on the field. Mm-hmm. It is just not. Everyone knows this who's ever watched or played football in any context. You have to play complementary football.
Yeah.
You have to give them a minute. Your rotations get off. Everything gets all. And what happens? Yadam gets exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Alante's been on the field the whole game. PI, mistake. It's just, for me, I can't blame him. This is, game number 12 in a row, under 20 points. Yeah. Hold the Packers under 350 yards. Dominant performance.
I think it's 20 in a row under 20. Something's crazy. It's I want to say it's the record.
Now it's 21.
Yeah, it's the NFL record, I believe.
No, it was 10 games. It was 10 games.
Yeah, it's 12
now. It's 11.
No, I thought it was 11 last week. No.
Hold on, I just saw it. I'll find it.
Either way, it's a whole lot of games in a row under 20 points. In an era of the NFL where points are scored all over the
the refs basically give teams points at this point. Yeah.
So, and let's be honest, if Carr doesn't get injured, this is a dominant defensive performance. That's how I viewed. We win by double digits.
Yeah.
Just because we're going to stay composed and everything's going to be fine. When the momentum started to shift, the offense gave zero help.
They couldn't.
The defense made the big stop on that 4th down. Got a little lucky with the Jordan Luck throw, but big stop, immediate 3 and out for us. There was no help to the defense at all in the second half with Jameis in there.
Let me ask you this: calling the game a murder of the Saints, was the defense an accomplice to the murder, or like Max said, they have blood on their hands? Do you think they have blood on their hands or were an accomplice to this?
They were the guy that's the driver.
I don't.
They were the driver. They were actively killing the person, but they drove the person off.
They didn't pull the trigger, but they
didn't pull the trigger, but they definitely drove the person to a safe house.
They knew the offense killed themselves inside.
I'll put it this way. They were on the same field. I don't know. I think it's unfair to say they should be able to get multiple of these stops when they got the big stop. They got no help. We scored 0 points in the second half. 0. We score 2 points in the second half. We win the game.
If you're sitting on the trial of the game and the defense is charged with the murder of the Saints win, the 17-zip lead, are you finding the defense guilty of any charge?
I'm finding the Derek Carr injury.
Okay, I mean that's
the whole
fair.
reason why this happened. The 100% reason, and that's why I don't want to overreact to this game, because this isn't what we are. No team in the league is going to immediately flip to a backup quarterback and it be a seamless transition mid-game. I think our backup quarterback situation is especially poor from across the league. I think, and I'll give him all the credit in the world. The last drive, when it was do or die, he got us in the field goal range. He did do that. I give him credit, but he was terrible.
Yeah,
we had 2 timeouts because we were going to get delay of games. We weren't organized anymore. It just felt different. It was frantic. The offense wasn't how many passes behind receivers?
Right.
Right. I just have a tough time saying it's the defense. I called this bad luck, and everything had to go wrong, even with that bad luck, and it did. It took a 45-yard penalty to really turn this game. If that doesn't happen, do I think they have another 80-yard drive? Probably not.
Yeah, the two PIs. I mean, because you had Taylor and then Yadam. I mean, it's like Love couldn't have had more than 150 passing yards to that point, and they gave him essentially like 60 in penalties, which you can't spot him. Like when you're already in that spot, like he backs against the wall with the backup QB, offense playing like shit. You can't spot him a score. We basically spotted him a score when we were up, by 2 scores. So it's...
Yeah, and as far as quarterback goes going forward, it really doesn't matter who's playing quarterback if the offensive line is going to continue to perform the way they have performed in the first 3 weeks.
Well, to me,
prime Brett Favre, prime Drew Brees would get killed back there.
Even more than what we all said prior to the season, that if Carr's out, we want to go Taysom because it's a different look. All more reason now.
Well, we said Taysom, but if it was one game. That is what we said.
We said
we did say that. We thought he would come in.
We said
Jameis.
I think we said more than one game. We said a few games.
For Taysom, we said specifically because I questioned that. I said,
we thought he would come in if it was to finish out a game.
I mean, I don't believe in Taysom Hill as quote unquote a QB. I believe in him as Ross Tucker believes in him as a football player, right? But is he capable of just being the primary QB for
no?
15
but I mean,
more games
you can throw teams
off
balance, just with the style of offense you're running. If it's only a couple of games.
His
now, if we're looking at like
it doesn't matter what
8 to 12 games,
we're looking at the options. How many turnovers? How many turnovers with this protection is Jameis giving up? With this type of protection,
I don't know.
Multiple per game, right?
Whatever the NFL record is.
It could be. He could break his 30 touchdown.
Yeah.
30 interception, career high. This is not an environment for Jameis to succeed at all.
Yeah, because he's not that runner that people seem to have visions of the past. Like, he's not escaping the pocket.
He's going to throw it.
He's probably less mobile than Carr.
Getting hit, getting hit.
I know about the same, but he's going to let it fly, I'll tell you that. You'll get a few big plays here and there, but you're going to get a few interceptions too.
Or, I don't know. This might be a pipe dream, but is it maybe in a way like better for him to be forced to get the ball out sooner than just having protection?
That didn't work the last 2 years. It's not going to work this year. The guy's 28, 29 years old. Like, he is what he is at this point.
If Peyton couldn't teach him that, it's not coming. Man.
Exactly.
It's not instinctive for him, no. But
so let's since we have no idea how bad the Carr injury, I think we're pretty certain.
It's all speculation.
He's gone a few weeks at least, with all the, speculation going on. Let's just assume he's out a month. Corey, what are you doing at quarterback?
So you're saying 4 weeks.
We're going to say he misses 4 games.
All right, this is a great exercise. So let's do multiple scenarios. So let's do the short-term scenario of 4 weeks, like you said, and then we'll do 12 weeks. And you kind of give us your what you would do.
Yeah, I think I like the idea. If I didn't see that last preseason game from Haener, then I like the idea of putting in a guy who
answer 4 weeks first.
For 4 weeks?
Yeah. Just 1 month. You got no Haener option.
3 to 4 weeks.
I think you start. I hate to do it, but our options are shit. I think you start Jameis, and you bring in a heavier dose of Taysom Hill at QB. I think you keep them having to.
So basically, what we did last year, in the previous year.
I don't know that we have much of a better option. At least if you show Taysom is coming in at the QB slot more, it at least forces the defensive coordinators to have to, split up their game plan more. I don't think you do full-time Jameis like we tried to do when he was the week 1 starter a couple years back. I think we've proven that's really just not an option. But I still think you can start Jameis, bring in Taysom more. I don't like it, but that's what I would go with.
Okay, so let's say it's a 10 to 12 week injury. Does your philosophy change on what you would do?
That's a season ender, basically.
Basically, a season-ending injury, basically.
It's tough to say at this point in the season. Like, if we were already out of playoff contention.
Well, but we're not. So we're saying going into week 4, what would you do? Like, what would be your game plan?
I think hearing 4 weeks, I see that as more than just a 1 or 2 week stretch. So I don't think that my decision would change.
So you would go with the same game plan?
Yeah. And then if it turns out to be a complete disaster, or if we get out of playoff contention, then you say fuck it and bring in Haener.
Well, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
But I think.
But you would have the same path.
With everything still on the table, I think you have to at least give yourself a QB. Because the one thing Jameis can do better than Taysom out of the QB slot is throw the ball downfield and actually put it somewhere in the vicinity of the receivers. We're talking about Jameis throwing it a little bit behind Michael Thomas. Taysom's missing it. Like, Taysom is missing the guy completely on a certain amount of throws.
Okay. So, Nick, what would you do?
I'm going Taysom until we're out of playoff contention. I don't feel comfortable with our line and Jameis not being mobile, in my opinion, anymore.
So short term, long term, either way, you would ride Taysom until
I'm riding Taysom to that boring ass offense, trying to win games 18-17. Seriously, we still have a great defense that hasn't changed. Luckily, other than Adebo, no injuries there. Things are going really good. I'm playing that game. I'm not going for the explosive guy. I want the guys, hopefully not going to turn it over as much because we're going to be a more run-focused team. Put Pete in there, go conservative. That's what I would do and see if you can, that's my 4-week plan, hoping you get to Carr going 2-2. We come out of that, 4-3. I'm still feeling pretty damn good about the season. If it's a 12-game thing, I don't know if there's a good answer.
There isn't one.
That's the problem.
I think we're done. I think we've already discussed this before, and the situation is happening. And I'm going to say the same thing. I think the season's over if it's a 10, 12-game injury. I think it's done. So I don't care what we do. I'm all for Haener if the season's lost, but I don't think you put Haener in when you're trying to win at all. You still a better chance with Jameis than Haener.
The thing's still on the table. Yeah, you can't.
I'm going to go with a hybrid plan of yours. I agree with Nick that if it's a short-term injury, I'm putting Taysom in. And let's see what he can do. Like, just tell the offensive lineman, look, we're going to be a predominantly run-oriented team. Look at the Falcons right now. Like, we've gone on record about Ritter. I don't think Ritter's worth a shit as an actual starting quarterback, and they're running the ball more than anybody else in the league.
Today, not very good.
Yeah, so it's like at that point for a couple of weeks, just ride Taysom, see what he can do. But I'll be honest with you, man. Once you get to like week 6 or 7 and it's long-term, and let's just say, we're not doing as well, I'd put Haener in at that point and just say, hey, let's see what he can do with the starters, with some actual weapons. And hopefully by then the offensive line's doing better. And just see if you can catch lightning in a bottle like the 49ers did with Purdy.
Yeah.
Not at all saying that's what he would do. Like,
right.
The likelihood is, like Nick just said, that Jameis is a more effective quarterback at that point. But we know what Jameis is. We know what his ceiling is in this offense. He's not a fit. You know what I mean? He's not meant for the short or for the quick passing game and all of that. He's a old school Raiders bombs away kind of quarterback. So at that point, I'd ride Taysom for a few weeks. When Haener gets back, I start giving him more reps and say, look, we're going to ride with you pretty soon and give you a shot to see what you got, and let's see what he's got.
Yeah, unless Taysom goes 3-1 and you're sitting there,
If Taysom's 3-1, then you ride it out.
You just keep going.
Yeah,
if you're winning, you keep going, no matter what.
I could see Taysom getting us to like 2-2 if it's a 4-game split. Because they're going to
schedule helps us a little right now. By the way,
this is where
little block we talked about after Green Bay, we've got a chance to win these games. The more winnable games, you would think our defense fares well in these upcoming games. Is what I mean. So we don't need a ton of points.
And the biggest thing right now is, look, the Falcons lost today too. They're pretty convincing loss. The Bucks are playing the Eagles tomorrow. You got to assume they're probably going to lose that game. So now the entire NFC South is no better than 2-1 going into Week 4. We've got the Bucks next week. I'm not sure who the Falcons have, if you could check that. But that game is huge next week.
Yeah.
Next week is absolutely must win.
Yeah, you got to find a way.
You have to find
win.
a way.
Like, I don't care if you scheme to play. Well, I guess we don't have Hayner, but however you need to scheme it. Like, if you have to have both QBs line up on the first play.
They play. So Atlanta plays the Jags next week.
Okay.
And the Jags need a win. They were bad today. They scored 6 points against Detroit, who was a very poor defense last year. They are not that good.
And they got lucky against Green Bay last week.
Very lucky. Basically, the opposite of what happened to us today happened to Green Bay in Atlanta last week. Then Carolina, we've seen. Now Bryce Young's hurt on top of it. This probably isn't their year, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
They're going to need time. So we find out what the Bucks are next week. Let's see what they do against the Eagles this week.
This is the definition of must win.
If they win, I think it is. If they lose to the Eagles, not the end of the world. We're still okay. But it's a big game, no doubt about it. I mean, whoever wins that game probably sitting pretty good coming up.
With Carr out, we're officially into
only win the division. Just focus on the division, nothing else.
But get them where you can. Like, I don't think there's any games that we can quote unquote afford to lose at this point.
But look, at the beginning of the year, everybody thought the NFC South was going to be a dumpster fire. It got off to a hotter start than expected. The reality is, at this point, you're not worried about the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 3 seed. You are strictly worried about winning the NFC South in this new world that we're living in.
Yeah.
Like, after seeing our offensive line perform or underperform for the last 3 weeks, and seeing the Carr injury, you just figure out a way to scrap your way to a division title and then just hope that you can put something together in the playoffs.
Yeah, we pray to God that Carr's injury is one where he can actually come back.
Yeah.
And then go from there. Like you said, Max, we kind of
we're pivoting from the normal.
There was a reason
review.
to go off the normal outline.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe bring some levity in this and talk about what our predictions were versus what actually happened?
Yeah, we'll do that and then wrap it up. What you got?
Okay, so Nick, you went. Do you remember what your prediction was? I have it.
On defense, I said Cam. He was a non-factor.
He didn't do shit today.
He didn't even get. I don't know. Kind of a rough game for him.
He didn't have 5 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble.
He did not. He'd had none of those, maybe.
Yeah, we all predicted a win, so we whiffed there.
But I think we probably would all have been right if normal circumstances.
Yeah.
I think we had the game pretty much dialed in on how it was going to go. The defense performed like we all thought. On offense, who did I say?
Shaheed.
Yeah, he was terrible, except he had the punt return on special teams, which was big for him. We only targeted him twice. I was a little disappointed in that. We gave him one end around. But to be fair, when we were throwing to MT and Olave, we had a really good success. I think we were 14 of 20, somewhere around 160 yards throwing to them.
Yeah.
Once again, they both performed the role we want to see. Mike underneath, Olave in behind him. That was working great today.
Yeah.
So, Shaheed definitely didn't have the game I wanted, except he had one of the touchdowns, which was
well, he single-handedly put 6 on the board. So
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Almost by default, he's got he could be the offensive MVP, even though it's a special teams play. Or I guess no one deserves offensive MVP.
The non-defensive MVP.
I mean, I guess Olave.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I don't think Cam had a tackle today.
He did. He got blanked.
I think he had zero tackles.
DeMario only had 3, I believe.
Yeah.
So they kept him
was chasing guys today. I think your score, though, was your score was definitely the closest out of all of us. You went 21-16 Saints, so you're closest on both ends there. Max went 23-16, and I was way off at 31-17. Maybe we would have had 31 if Carr stayed in the game. Who knows? But yeah, I went Olave is overall MVP. I mean, maybe best offensive player on a really
by default, you have to give it to Olave.
Lackluster offensive day. I did go with Alante as my defensive, and I predicted him to have a sack. He had a sack.
He might have been the best and worst defender on our team today.
Well, anytime you give up a 40-plus DPI.
The couple missed tackles on the first 2 early drives, too, where he was in great position. He was everywhere.
Well,
he was everywhere. He just missed a couple plays, but he had 5 passes defensed.
Yeah.
In one game is crazy.
Again, I can't take any, not just because I picked him to be MVP, but I can't take anything away from him. At least his mistakes in the first quarter didn't result in anything, unlike the DPI in the fourth that really gave him a head start on coming back against us.
Yep.
I mean, you pretty much nailed it, though, with Olave and Alante. So that's I know I was off. I had Marshawn as defensive.
He played
to be
well.
fair, he
nice
locked down
stops.
his side of the field.
Right. There was no reason to throw
And
it.
had 7 tackles, 4 solo, 1 pass defense. I mean,
So I guess if you look at the overall flawless performance, Marshawn probably is the defensive MVP. Because his side of the field was just locked down.
Yeah, he only had that one first down he allowed where he got turned.
But
that wasn't on him. I don't think
wasn't
that was
him.
on him. That was on Alante.
That's on Alante.
Well, we were talking about that, but the replay, maybe that's why Marshawn turned his hips. Maybe he thought Alante was going to come screaming into the corner. But
Marshawn turned his hips super early. There was no move made by that receiver. He turned his hips early to go deep.
Yeah,
to go with the
exactly. So
deep
he
receiver.
thought-
But then he saw Alante turn, and he immediately
That's
turned
why
to
he
take
came
his
back.
spot.
Yeah.
Right. You saw him pick that up immediately and fix it.
He was making up for Alante's
and if he
mistake.
doesn't do that, it's not just a first down.
Right.
It's like a 30-yard game.
I think that was actually a great play by Marshawn and not a bad play, even though Vilma kind of said something, I think.
Vilma put it on Marshawn,
On Marshawn,
100%. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and change it. I think Marshawn is the defensive MVP. He didn't fill up the stat line, but he locked down the entire left side of the field.
Yeah.
Now, my prediction of Kendra Miller did not come to fruition.
He did not run for 100 yards.
He had 38, if I'm not mistaken, and it looked like he was about to get going right about when Carr got hurt. Because they started feeding him a little bit more.
He was finding daylight and behind Pete, too.
He was pushing, too,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Like, you could see there's some juice there.
Yeah.
You know, we're all, I think, on the same page about Tony Jones Jr. He lacks explosion, I think would be a
He
mild
played
way to
pretty
put
good.
it.
He had 12 total touches for 52 for Tony Jones. Not a bad
day, but he had
years.
a decent-sized run. I know it was like 12, 15 yards.
He did
a 19-yarder.
He did
19
a good
yarder,
job. Like, he's fast enough to hit the hole and get something, but not like Kendrick.
He's solid enough to get, I guess, what's there. But the problem is
That's what
with
I'm
our
saying.
offensive line, nothing's there. But when you watch Kendra run, he was pushing the pile.
Yeah.
Like you would see someone hit it with force, and he would carry people
He's
a few more
absolutely
yards.
stronger, and while Tony Jones can hit the hole if it's open, Kendra is much faster through it, so he can get to the second level with a lot more
Tony
frequency.
Jones slaps the hole.
Yeah,
He doesn't hit it. He lightly slaps
Well, he
it.
like knocks on the door. Like, anybody there?
Yeah, he knocks on it.
I'm gonna walk through.
Kendra hits it hard.
Yeah, Kendra's bust. Like Tony Jones knocks, walks through the door. Kendra's busting it down.
I'm going to say this, though. I'm terrified going forward with pending the amount of time Carr's out because Kamara is about to be a non-factor in the passing game again if Jameis is at quarterback because he has an aversion to throwing screen passes or just getting the ball to Kamara in space.
Short of, and this might not even work, but unless Carmichael tells him, hey, if Kamara doesn't have 5 catches every game minimum, then you're getting benched. I mean, short of that, but I don't even think
threat's
that's
pretty hollow when you literally only have Taysom Hill on the roster.
Well, how long's Hainer out? You can put Hainer in.
6 weeks.
We're not putting Hainer in. Y'all got to stop on that. He's not playing until the season's completely lost. Last thing I've got to say is defense. Jordan Love was 22 of 44. That's a 50% completion. That's an excellent job.
Forcing them to 44 pass attempts when they have Dylan, I think that's a win.
I mean, to be fair, they were missing their starting left tackle, their
And
number
their
one
starting
wide
left guard.
receiver, their number one running back. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah.
this
True.
team was beat up to all shit coming in.
Yeah, that's true.
Held them under 100 total rushing yards, 3.7 a carry. The thing I thought was lacking is finishing those sacks that we finished the first 2 weeks. We were back there multiple times. Alante whiffed one. Granderson, I think, got in on one. Foskey took a weird angle on potentially one and got beat outside for a small scramble. But we had a few times to make a play back there, and he scrambled out of it. And he did a great job. I give him all the credit. But we finished those in the first 2 games.
We mentioned that in the preview pod that was one of the threats. Like, how does Green Bay have success? And one of them was
Him run.
these, unaccounted for scrambles by Jordan Love. We also mentioned the crossing routes. They had a couple of those, but that's not what won the game for them. I mean, there was a couple times where they just hit, they caught us in a zone, outran our guys, took advantage of that. But
They took advantage of their opportunities in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
He made a couple plays outside the pocket, getting out of it when pressure came, and he also ran it 9 times for 39 yards and a touchdown. That's really what, in my opinion, hurt us on the defensive line. So I'd say that if there's any knock, the defensive line maybe could have made a couple more big plays. But overall, that's pretty good.
It also goes back to God.
It was pretty good. It wasn't dominant.
We held them.
It was for 3 quarters.
We held them to 18 points, and this was the third or second. It's 2 weeks in, but they had the third or second most points scored in the league coming in.
Yeah,
and we held them to 18 points.
Well, look, I mean,
that should have been good enough, but obviously we went through the issues as to why it wasn't.
Well, when your backup, when your starter quarterback goes out, you have to push harder than that.
Yeah,
and the reality is, like they were dominant, but it wasn't dominant like the first couple of weeks. Like they were giving stuff up in the first half. Right. You know, like little plays here and there. I mean, Green Bay, if they hit that fourth down play on the first drive, like we all said it, that could have been a touchdown very easily. Yeah. Just the first, the toss back to the quarterback was bad, and then he fumbled around with it. That could have easily been a touchdown.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we said.
But they had like 100 yards going in at halftime. I don't know if they gave up stuff.
Well, I'll put it
0
this way.
points and 100 yards?
After the Titans game, the one thing I said that I liked about what we saw in that performance was the timeliness of the plays that we made. We made the plays that we had to make when they needed to be made.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw out of the team in the first half. Like sure, short field, but did we need 7? Yeah, we got 7. Special teams play from Shaheed. It was there. Go up 14. Even getting the field goal to make it 17 makes it a 3-score. And the defense let some shit happen between the 20s, but at the end of the day, they did what they had to do in the first half anyway. It was really the untimeliness on both ends of the ball in the fourth quarter. Defense let them score when we needed to hold them. Offense went 3 and out when we needed to get first downs. And that's really what it came. I mean, yeah, you're missing Carr. Throws a huge wrench in the plans. Understatement. But still, when we needed to make plays, we didn't. When we needed to stop them, we let them through.
Yep. So overall, about as disappointing a day as we could have. 17-point lead given away in the second half, losing Carr, which was the catastrophic thing we all discussed before the season on the lead-up pod. So, rough day. Thanks for listening again, and we'll catch you on our preview of the Tampa game coming up next weekend.
All right.